This is Jessica, Oracle of the South. Join me tonight as we enter the portal into the world of cryptids, Bigfoot, aliens, UFOs, ghosts, and interdimensionals. Hey, y'all. Welcome into the portal. I'm Jessica. I have an amazing show for you guys tonight, and I'm going to bring up Tex and Bigfoot Michigan Rob in just a second. First, I'd love for you guys to go follow me on my social media sites. All right. So I'm at the Cryptid Huntress. I'm at Into the Portal _ Jessica and my shop, War Woman Goods. Now, if you guys would like to support my show and all the work I'm doing, go buy some jewelry out of my shop. It's War Woman Goods. I'm on and I have an Etsy shop. Okay. So also I have a really cool YouTube channel. So all of my shows are streamed live at the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. I also do daily videos with my tarot card readings and just whatever else comes up. All right. So you guys go subscribe to my channel. Also, I am speaking at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference this year on April the 16th in Clayton, Georgia. So if you guys are interested in coming to that, go to the georgiabigfootconference.org and get your tickets today because that event will sell out. Okay. All right. Well, I'm about to introduce my guests tonight who are amazing. My favorite Bigfoot podcast duo. We've got Michigan Rob here tonight. All right. So Tex Wesson is the creator of Trinity Para-Cryptid Research and Texas Front Porch on YouTube. He's a field researcher and has encountered Bigfoot, Dogman, and the paranormal. Bigfoot Michigan Rob is the host of Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and the creator of Beyond BMR. He's experienced Bigfoot and has some amazing stories to tell. So in addition to these shows that they're doing that I announced, they have several more shows that they work on. So I want to bring up Tex and Bigfoot Michigan Rob. All right, guys, welcome into the portal.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jessica. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Hey, Tex. Thanks for being
Jessica,
here.
how you doing, man? I really appreciate you having us on. I've been looking forward to this one.
Oh, well, thank you. Well,
For more than one reason.
Oh, really? Well, I had the pleasure of being on you guys' show a little while back, and we talked about so much crazy, awesome stuff, including, just from Bigfoot to all the paranormal stuff that goes on out in the field. Even we touched on remote viewing a little bit there.
Yes,
so, and I have a big surprise for you tonight, Tex. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
All right.
As it pertains to remote viewing. And so, I know when I was on your show, we had discussed the area that you live in and research in Texas. And there was an event there back in the 1980s, and you asked me to remote view it. So in a little while, we're going to talk about my target and the kind of information that I came up with. Okay. So yeah, well, I would love for you guys to kind of tell the audience a little bit about what you guys do and about your shows that you have. Okay. Because I know you have more than one or two. So Tex or Rob, who would like to start?
I'll let Tex start.
Well, we are a group that the research group is Trinity Para-Cryptid Research.
Okay.
And under that umbrella, we've got, that's our field research group. And we recently rebranded our channel. Now, the channel is called Texas Front Porch. And we have our Monday show, and we do it 6:30 p.m. Central. It's the flagship show, you could call it, I guess. It's
right,
Texas Front Porch Live.
Excuse me.
And then Thursdays, we were getting a lot of frustrating viewers from the UK and stuff like that because they couldn't catch the shows live, and they loved to interact with us and everything. So we said, well, why don't we do something, that they can catch? So we do Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at noon every Thursday.
Very
So,
cool. That's what
you
I
know,
came on. Yeah, I was on Brunch with Bigfoot.
yeah. And
Great
then
show.
we just recently, I mean, last week or this last week, well, last Wednesday, we launched a new show, and it's on Wednesday nights at 9 Central, and it's called Jason Mclean Questions Everything. And that
Very
was
cool.
a little different than what we do because it's a panel discussion show, and it's not all of us at one time every time, but it's most of us from the group will be there at one time or another, and every once in a while we'll bring in a special guest, and we talk about everything. I mean, this last time I even got fired up on this last show we did, man, and I had to kind of pull the reins back, and the boys kind of let me go, but yeah, it goes all over the place. But this thing started and it snowballed, and it's just getting bigger and
Yeah,
bigger and bigger, and we
that's how
love
it
it.
goes. Yeah.
You know, we love it. And I got to tell you, I can't say it any other way. I was blessed to be able to, pull in the folks that I've got with me. And we've become such a tight knit group. We got Jason Mclean, we've got, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and we've got a paranormal guy that we lean on and then we got Bob, our executive producer, that's fixing to start simulcasting with. I mean, it's just a great group.
Yeah.
And everybody's got talents, and Rob was a godsend. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
The
And
man's a
he knows
go-getter.
how to get some good guests on, doesn't
Boy,
he?
he does, man.
I was contacted by Rob a while back, and he was, he invited me on your show, and it was one of the my favorite things that I've done in a while because I had so much fun. You guys have an amazing list of guests that you've had on, and including recently, you guys had Ron Moorhead on, and I just love his work and and all the Sierra sounds, and I just did a show about that, and it was so cool because I had planned to do that show a while back, and I had my guests lined up, and and I was going to put it off for a little while, but my guest Joelle was like, no, Jessica, go ahead and let's talk about Bigfoot language because it's obviously in the collective consciousness and people are probably going to be talking about this, so let's go ahead and do it now, before everybody else jumps on it. And it was so wild because that same week you guys had Ron Moorhead on. And so it coincided with exactly what he and I were going to be talking about. And so it just blew my mind. And I was so happy because it was almost like a continuation, like your interview. Mine was a continuation of what your interview was with his. So I just love that. And I love that, we have, so we both have good followings, and a lot of the people that watch my show watch your show.
Yep.
And I know I watch y'all shows all the time. So yeah. Well, I'm really happy that you guys are on because we got Tex from Texas. We got Bigfoot Michigan Rob from Michigan. And I've had guests on my show from all over the country. Okay. Mostly the South though. Y'all know I'm from the South in Georgia. But I recently had somebody on from Indiana and Ohio and Florida. And I would love to hear your stories about where you guys live. Just to get a little taste of what it's like, Bigfooting in Texas and also in Michigan.
Rob, you want to kick her off?
I can kick it off. And Jessica, again, thank you for having us on. And, it's kind of like you talk about coming together as one. I had a Bigfoot encounter. It'll be 4 years, June 15th of 2018. I have that date implanted in my head. And, the thing is, I looked for an outlet to talk about my encounter, and Tex at the time was running his show with Jason Mclean and himself. And I was on their show and I talked about my encounter. And then, several months later, Tex and I became friends. We would chit chat back and forth via the internet or on the telephone. And I called Tex up one day. I said, hey, man, I'm looking to start a channel. My channel is Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And he says, yeah, that'd be cool because I wanted to find out how he got into it and all the intricacies involved. So we're kicking around some ideas. So Tex had said to me, hey, Rob, you know what? I'm looking to start a daytime show, as he said, to get a broader viewing audience in maybe the UK or just a time slot. And he was kicking around the idea, how about we do a show at 12? You just come on with me, and we hammered out Brunch with Bigfoot. So Tex said to me, I'll call you in a couple, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we'll lay it out. We'll get it started. I'm like, cool. So I'm all excited. I'm geeked. And this is like on a Tuesday. He calls me that Friday of that week and says, hey, man, we're kicking off the show Thursday. I'm like, what? What about the month? He goes, no, man, this is going to be hot. Come on, let's do it. We got together. Now the show's been on now for a year. It's very successful. We've rebranded, as Tex had said. And thank you, Tex. I've told Tex many times, thank you. And I'm just honored to be where I am today. And Jessica, the reason I'm here today is because of an encounter that I did have back June 15th. And, you know, this is normally a 20-minute spiel, but I cut it down because I know you told me we got 57 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the condensed version, but I'll give everybody the meat.
Yeah, we want to hear it.
You know, June 15th, 2018, summertime. I went to Cadillac, Michigan with my girlfriend, Cindy. And, you know, she'd never gone fishing or experienced the woods, and I wanted to take her on. I kind of surprised her. We went to Cadillac, Michigan to do some fishing. So I rent a boat, we get a boat out, and we are on Lake Cadillac. And I go down through this canal, and it connected to Lake Mitchell, which is a bay southwest of Lake Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful area surrounded by trees. You know, you can see hawks floating in the air, and it's nice and serene. So we're floating 90 feet from shore, and I'm setting up our lures. Cindy's out looking at the wood line. I'm looking down into the boat where Cindy had made mention, hey, Rob, someone's throwing rocks at the boat. I'm like, Cindy,
Ooh.
throwing rocks at the boat. All right. What are these punks up to? Let me look at the shoreline. Well, there's nothing on the shoreline. It's just desolate. It's just wood, sand, water, and us. I said, it's probably some fish jumping around.
Sure.
So I put my head down, doing my thing with the gear. Rob, seriously, someone's throwing rocks at the boat. I look, I see nothing. I dismissed it. I said, just sit down, settle down. So now when we get through this, I look up into the air and I see something falling out of the sky. I'm thinking it's a dead bird, whatever. Then I'm looking, it just plops 12 foot in front of the boat. It's a rock, kerplop.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So I look at shore. First, I look to Cindy to my right, and she is like dead on, dead panning.
Yeah.
You know, now this is summer. She had a pretty nice tan. Her face was white.
I bet.
It was like you couldn't paint it any whiter.
Oh my gosh.
And I look up and I see this creature standing there at shoreline. He had to stand 9 foot tall. Reddish brown. We're 90 feet from shore, from the boat. His arms are draped or are alongside of his body. Then he lifts them up parallel to the shoreline. And I'm looking at this thing, and it looked like a human being, but with like Down syndrome. And I apologize for anybody that has any experience with that, but this is the best I can describe it. Certainly what it looked like. It was a human with those features.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. Now it drops its jaw, raises, as I said, its arms. You can see the reddish brown fringe coming down.
Wow.
I see fringe coming down. Opens his mouth in an gaping mouth. Like, you know, you remember that video Pac-Man, you know, when we were kids, you know, this reminded me of. But when it dropped the mouth, its face contorted, I always say metamorphosized into what I explain as a demon. And in unison, without moving his lips, all elongated, it screamed, it roared, yelled.
Wow.
The strength of this thing it had to come from inside. The lung capacity had to be just tremendous.
Wow.
It was so tremendous that I felt a vibration hit me. It certainly hit Cindy because she fell off the back end of the boat.
She fell into the water?
Fell into the water.
Oh my.
Now, here's the thing. After further investigation, maybe I would say with an infrasound, I would say with some sort of energy. Because now as I'm looking at shoreline, it's a filter. I see everything in a filter, and I see a demonic looking face on this Bigfoot or this creature.
Yeah.
The transformation was just night and day. But now I'm paralyzed. I hear her fall off the boat. I cannot move to get her because I was frozen.
Wow.
Like I am, like right now, I'm appearing to you right now. I could not look. I couldn't break free to my right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started trying to shake my head. I snap out of it. I get her into the boat finally. Now where I was most scared was when I looked to shoreline and this thing's gone. We beelined out of there. I must have broke every record in the world going across, a 5, 7, 10 acre lake. We get to docking the boat. She's shivering. It's the middle of summer. I don't know. I mean, it's so much information to process in that short of time. The encounter seemed like it lasted a year, but it was probably less than 30 seconds.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just
that's how that works.
Time stop.
Wow.
And we get out of the boat, we go back we find this bar or this restaurant, we huddle up in the corner, we look at each other. What in the heck did we just see,
Wow.
Now, mind you, we never spoke about Bigfoot or anything paranormal or weird, high strangeness. She says the words, I think we saw Bigfoot. And I'm like, honey, I think we did.
Well, had you believed in Bigfoot before you had this experience?
No. Again, as a young child growing up, I read what you could read back then. I'm not going to tell my age, but there was no books in a lot. There was one book in the library. I was into Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, just like all of us. I was into that. I never researched it, but I'm an open-minded fella, and I believe it. So she says Bigfoot. I'm like, you know what? I think it was. So I said, hey, you want to, continue on with our little vacation? She goes, hell no. Let's go home and research this. Let's find out what we saw. And she's like, and I'm like, should we tell the DNR? And she's like, well, actually, she asked me. I asked her about the DNR, and I said, you know what? Let's not do it. They'll probably think we're just, two people making up some story. As we all,
right.
We get home.
Yeah. That keeps a lot of people from reporting that.
Right. And the encounter itself was traumatic enough because, like I say, I thought it was a demon, to be honest with you. Today, I don't believe that. But it put me in a dark area, Jessica, because 2 months to the day of the encounter, June 15, 2018, Cindy, my girlfriend, August 18th of 2018, passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
So I linked it now at the time, I'm linking it to Bigfoot. I think when we got hit with that force, that energy that maybe messed up her organs or what have you. So I was in a dark spot. I was really dark. I as I mentioned earlier, backstage, I owned my own business and I let it go. I didn't go to work for 6 months. I was just distraught. Started following all these different, I didn't know YouTube. I used YouTube for music. I never used it to look up videos or information. Started doing that and started learning more things. And I got in contact with a few people that are reputable in the field that told me, hey, Rob, you're not going crazy. You've seen something we think is Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And now today, as I tell this story, I'm fine today. I've gotten answers. But then again, what answers do we really get?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was Bigfoot that did it, but you got to remember at the time when this happened, I was the first guy that would go back with a machine gun and just, start firing into the forest because that's how bad off I was. I was pretty bad. I didn't go to work for 6 months. I had my manager deposit the money in my bank account and hope that he wasn't ripping me off.
Yeah, man, that's so traumatic, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that happened.
And
That's really hard. We in my experience, my team has experienced that we go out and put ourselves in those situations where we do experience a lot of paranormal stuff. And, through all the, just having a Geiger counter out there, we see that there's so much radiation, like little radiation spikes every time there's something paranormal going on. So it's absolutely possible that, there could have been a big old spike of radiation when that Bigfoot was out there with you guys, or just whatever. We're all the science, is still out on all this stuff because we still don't know. But the paranormal brings a lot of negative, health problems and things for a lot of people, and two of my teammates that actually walked into a portal, they developed terrible health problems after that. So so I'm sorry to hear that. It can be very traumatic.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I see some of the comments you put up, and everybody out there today. I'm fine. I mean, are you ever fine? Right. I mean, any loss. I mean, the loss of a loved one through normal circumstances is traumatic enough. Than to think that it's linked to something that I've seen. I don't think it's that today. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. But yes, I'm straight on today. PTSD I suffered from for a long time.
Yeah,
I got that kind of under control. And today I will let everyone know I have positive energy and thoughts. It's cool. I don't think she was killed. But because of what happened, in a way, it's brought me to where I am today. And you know what? I appreciate that. And that's the positive that today I can get out of. Because if somebody has a problem, they can talk to me. I won't call them a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's beautiful. Yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's how we all are. I'm the same way. I've been through a lot in my life. And, I've been there and I've done that. And I've experienced some trauma and, all sorts of stuff. But I'm able to relate to people. And so your empathy is just beyond measure, Rob. And you too, Tex. Like we've been there. We know how traumatic this stuff can be, and, just doing that remote viewing target from the couple that was attacked up in Texas. Tex, I mean, that was very traumatic, and a lot of times when we're immersed in this paranormal and out in the field, there's not just Bigfoot that we're researching out there. I mean, this land is usually tied to a lot of trauma and Civil War battles and Indian land disputes and things like that. And so there's a lot of trauma and negativity going on in a lot of this paranormal stuff we're researching. And so, Tex, Rob, you guys are known to have a Dogman in Michigan, right?
We are now. We are Wexford, Michigan, the Dogman capital of the world. I will concede to Tex because he is the experiencer when it comes to this.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it. I'd love to hear about Tex. I'd love to hear about your Dogman story because I don't hear a whole lot of personal Dogman stories. So please tell us about that.
Well, and again, Rob, I can't thank you enough, brother. I'm glad you came along, man.
All right.
It was, I grew up about an hour northwest of Fort Worth. And just an old country boy. And from a young age, I was hunting and fishing and trapping, and going, from 12, 13, I was going out by myself. I'd grab a couple of cans of beans and go, hey, this mom, dad, this is where I'm going to be. I'll be back this time, and I'd go, for a couple of days by myself. And I had this one particular place I loved to hunt. It was so thick you could only travel the game trail. Sometimes you're down on your hands and knees, and it would open up to these clearings that were about, anywhere from just big enough to lay down a tent to the footprint of a small house. And it was covered in what we call prairie grass. And so that was my favorite place to hunt. And I had been hunting there and I was 16 years old. So this has been a day or two ago. But I was walking back. The sun was. We lived down in the valley, so the sun had just went below one of the hills, but it hadn't gone down below the horizon, so it was still daylight. And I was walking down a gravel road that bordered our place, and I was just about to hop our fence and make a beeline for the house, and this thing come out of the brush on my left side, and I don't know if I woke it up, if I disturbed a meal, or if I just caught him in the middle of, an evening jog. I don't know. But he come brusting out of the brush on the left side and ran across the road in front of me about 20, 30 feet away. And he was on two legs. Woo. And the part that I have frozen in my head, and somebody said, well, can you draw a picture? I've drawn a picture of it several times. I had an artist do a rendition of it one time. But he turned his head and he growled at me in mid-stride. And then he just dove over our fence. And when he dove over the fence, he went down to all fours, and I saw the grass move. It was what we call love grass. It was about 4 feet high. And I saw the grass move for about 10 yards or so, and just nothing. He just disappeared.
Interesting.
And but this critter was probably about 7.5 feet tall.
Wow.
And it was very canine. And the closest thing that somebody sees something like this, and this is back in the 80s, and the term Dogman hadn't been coined then. All I knew was I thought I saw a werewolf.
A werewolf, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I knew to call it. And but it was at the time I thought it was a mane coming off the back of its head and going down its shoulders, and then in a V down its back. And the hair was longer there, and it was black with some hints of like silver or white in it.
Wow.
And the hair on his body wasn't real shaggy. It was kind of thinner hair. And it was like Rob was talking about. You see the hair hanging down off the arm and stuff, it's about 4 inches, 5 inches long.
Yeah.
But his head looked like American Werewolf in London. That's the best thing. Wow. And that's not exactly what he looked like, but that's the closest thing I can come, because he didn't have that long wolf snout. He had a shorter, blunter snout, broad, blunt snout on him. He didn't have, a lot of people talk about, these critters having just a mouthful of just gnarly looking teeth.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. He just looked like a dog, because when he growled at me, one of the things that really stood out to me is there's an old wives' tale. If you're looking for a smart dog, get one with black in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was weird. One of the things
it's all weird, right?
Was he had a black mottled mouth and tongue. And and his ears were pinned back like an old horse or a dog. When they get upset, they'll pin them old ears back.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he loped off in his way. And a lot of people talk about them having backward turning legs and stuff.
Yeah.
This one, I don't want to call it that, because to me, he didn't look like he had true hocks. It looked like he was just up on his toes, but he had real long feet.
Interesting.
His hands were human-like. His arms were human-like.
Wow. Did you happen to see any prints? Did you spend any time looking for prints after this happened?
Well, after I changed my underwear,
of course. Oh man.
And it's like Rob was saying, and we hear so many encounters, and it's the same way. Time slows down.
Yeah.
The thing takes seconds, but in your mind, it's like forever. So I had I didn't even register to look for this and look for that and do this and all that kind of stuff. All I knew is he didn't kill me.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
And I knew that if he'd have wanted to, there wouldn't have been nothing I could do. I had a gun, but I didn't have no ammo. I had 2 rabbits hanging off my belt, so basically I had a 3-foot club with me. But the thing that went through my head was, how am I going to get home? He just went the way I was going to go.
Ooh, yeah. Ouch.
So I'm like, I don't want to follow him in the tall grass.
Yeah.
And this is snap decision making. It's not, you're not sitting here just processing. It's just like, boom, I'm going to make this decision. Here I'll go. But what I ended up doing, I ended up taking the long way home. I figured, well, at least I'll be on the road, and if something happens, maybe I'll get a swing at him. I don't know. Right. And pretty much the whole walk, because I had to go up the road. We had 20 acres, so I had to go, and I ran into him about 3/4 of the way back. And so I had to walk up the road, across the front of our place on another road, and then down our driveway back on the other side. So the whole walk is pretty much a blur, because there's no doubt I was in a state of shock.
Oh, yeah.
And the only part that I do remember is thinking to myself that one time and I remember exactly where I was. I had just made the turn. I was walking across the top of our place. Excuse me. And I remember thinking, looking down at my gun and going, well, I might get a swing at him, So anyway, I walked in the front door, and my mama, she had a rule that everybody, no guns in the kitchen. Like I said, I grew up in the country, folks. This was, but I walked in the back door of the house, and I pretty much just collapsed in the kitchen chair, and I put my gun on the kitchen table. And I remember my mama was in the kitchen. I don't remember if she was cooking, washing dishes. I don't know what she's doing. And she turned around and she saw the gun, and she was I guess she was fixing to scold me, like, what do you think you're doing? And she looked at me and she goes, oh my God, what's wrong with you? You're white as a ghost. And I tried to tell her what happened. Literally nothing would come out. I could not speak. Right. And so she keeps trying to get me to talk. I can't, And my sister lived on the same property we did, about 50, 60 yards away. She called my sister. My sister came over, and it took them about 45 minutes to an hour to calm me down enough where I could actually tell them what happened.
Wow.
And they were like, well, maybe you saw a big dog or a wolf or something, and it just, your imagination took over something. They were trying to rationalize this, because what I saw wasn't supposed to exist.
Right.
And my brain was in the process of rebooting and trying to wrap, my young 16-year-old mind was terrified.
Man, you got jolted into a whole new reality at that moment. You went from living in this little box of a 3D matrix reality into some other realm, right, Tex?
Yeah.
You too, Rob. I mean, it's just a whole new life, right?
And I get asked a lot, well, one of the first things I'll get asked is, well, did you have a good support group? And that's one thing that my family's always been, especially on my mom and my sister, and my brother too, but he lived in another city, but they were pretty open-minded about what, we don't understand.
Right.
So they never told me I was lying. They never told me I was crazy. They just tried to come up with something else that it could have been, and really trying to get me to look at it from a different angle is the way I felt about it. But I stuck to my guns over the years, and they finally came to, say, well, you saw what you saw, and then, but it set me back on my heels for about 6 months. And I didn't go out like I did. And every time I would have to go down to the barn, I went loaded for bear.
Oh yeah. I
You
don't
know,
blame you.
anytime it was dark and I had to go over to my sister's house, it was a dead run. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but after about 6 months, I got to where I quit being scared and I was mad
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like I was being bullied, you know, and I despise bullies to this day. I can't stand them.
Yeah.
But that's what I felt like. And I said, I'm not going to let this thing keep me from doing what I loved,
Yeah.
you know? And
Absolutely.
so I started going out a little bit of, venturing out little baby steps. I finally got going back to where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going, I guess it was probably almost a year later. I was going back out to hunt this place that I was just that I had described earlier, the place I was coming from when I saw him. And I believe I encountered him a second time.
Oh, wow.
And I was there was a piece of deadfall that had fallen on the barbed wire fence. And what I would do is I'd just run up the tree and just jump over and go into the woods. And I would come out of a dry creek bottom, and I was about to scamper up this dead tree and jump over the fence. And I heard something walking in the trees, walking in the brush. Now, there was a set of twins that lived on the other side of this place. Now, this place was a couple of thousand acres that I hunted. So they lived on the other side of this place. And I knew them, went to school with them, and they knew I hunted there. They hunted there and everything. So I thought maybe it's them, you know. So I hollered out, "Hey, David, Doug, at one of y'all out yonder?" And it stopped, but it didn't. Nobody said anything.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Hey, if that's one of y'all, let me know." And it just shifted its weight.
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Look," I said, "that's one of y'all. Tell me right now, or I'm going to shoot."
Mm-hmm.
And that goes against everything my daddy taught me about using a gun.
Right.
You identify your target before you pull the trigger because you can't call that bullet back.
Unless it's a Dogman.
So, and it shifted its weight again. So I popped around off up in the air, and that's when all hell broke loose. This thing sounded like a freight train coming through the brush.
Uh-oh. At you?
Yeah. And I got to tell you, old Tex tucked his tail and he ran all the way back to the house. I never looked back. If this thing was fixing to snatch me up, I didn't want to know it.
Yeah. Oh.
And I never slowed down, and I run back to the house. Now, I don't know when he stopped or whatever. But I didn't care as long as he stopped.
Well, did anybody else ever see this? Did anybody else in your region or area ever encounter this Dogman?
Well, what was weird is we would hear stories about a foal going missing after a mare dropped her, or a new calf would get tore up, something like that. Somebody's horses tore up, something. Just stories like that you hear. Chickens going missing, that type of thing. Dog getting killed, but it was always wrote off. What I always heard was either that big cat's in the area again, or there's a pack of wild dogs roaming around. So that's the kind of stuff that we would hear. And after getting in touch with somebody years and years later, when I went public with this, found out I wasn't the only one. And people were actually talking about this, and maybe I wasn't nuts. And somebody helped me put the dots together, connect the dots on this thing. About a year prior to my first sighting, we had a dog come up missing. And the only way we found him was we started smelling him. Mm-hmm. And he was underneath the house. Well, Daddy's not going to crawl underneath the house. Guess who gets crawled underneath the house?
Oh, no.
So I crawl up under yonder, and I grab the dog and I pull him out, and he looks like somebody had just held him up by the front feet and just gutted him.
Oh my.
Well, then years later, and Daddy, he said, well, he probably got into it with the bobcat or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Well, hell, here I am, probably 15 at the time. I didn't know no better. What Daddy says,
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, after I started talking to somebody, like I said, years and years later, they started asking me the same questions you're asking me. Did anybody see this? What kind of reports did you hear? This kind of thing. And after I started telling her these things, that's when the dots started connecting. This thing had been around for a while.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And even back then, with the 2 encounters, the reason I kept going and because it didn't take me now. Don't get me wrong. I took a little hiatus after the second one too, but it didn't take me as long because I figured that this thing had at least 2 chances to kill me.
It did, and it didn't kill you.
So obviously, that's not what this thing was interested in.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I don't know. I think I might have been watching you guys' show this past week. There was a discussion about how if Dogman and the Bigfoots, if they want to get you, they're gonna get you.
Right.
But they don't. Like they might come bang on the side of your house, or they might, run up next to your car full force, or throw a rock at you. But I've had a big rock thrown at me before, and it landed at my feet in my camping chair, but it didn't touch me. So, but we know that if these things wanted to hurt us, they could kill us. They could rip us to shreds, right? Now, not to say they're not ripping our pets, our animals, and deer and things like that.
Right.
But they have the ability to do that, and which leads us into your research area, Tex, the Brown Springs area, and all that high strangeness there. Now, can we talk about that just a little bit? And because I really want to get into this remote viewing target I did before our time runs out tonight.
Right.
I was about to say, it's already 42 minutes. Tex and I took up 20 minutes apiece on our encounters.
Hey, but I love it. And really quick
before we get into that, that's why I do what I do along with Tex and Jessica. I can probably say the same for you. This is a platform where people have had encounters where the average person is going to think that we're crazy, right? Or making things up. And that's why I suppressed everything I did for so long. I can't speak for Tex, but that's why we do what we do. And Jessica, I do commend you and people that do what we do today. And with that being said, I had to get that out there because I am an advocate for people that are traumatized, and you have a place on our show and Jessica's show. So that's my little spiel there. Please continue.
Yes.
Well,
awesome. Thank you, Rob.
The main place the place that I do most of my research at, my boots on the ground stuff, is Brown Springs, Oklahoma. Now, a lot of people are going to know where that's at and have heard of it. It's a very notorious area. It's got a dark reputation, and it's as deserved as it will ever be. Because it's got a long, dark history. But I've had 2 daylight Sasquatch sightings out there, and I got to tell you, a lot of people, when they first see a Sasquatch and Bigfoot, whatever you want to call us critters, no matter how far away you are from them, it traumatizes them.
Absolutely.
Now, my first sighting, I just got out of the truck. It was 8:30 in the morning. I'm standing around looking because I'd never been to this place before. I'm taking in the lay of the land, and I'm looking through this thin tree line into a wheat field. This thing pops up out of the wheat field, looks around, and then takes off running. Ooh. And now he was about probably 75 yards away, but the wheat was about 4 feet high, and I could see him from the waist up. So what does that tell you? He's a pretty tall individual. And I saw him from the waist up until he hit the fire break that was mowed around the wheat field. And then I saw him caught him head to toe for a couple of steps. Now, I think this is what I believe. My early encounter as a youngster helped me deal with what I'm doing now. Because up until, it's 6 months ago, Rob, or maybe more, a little bit, I got grounded by my team.
Yeah, about 6 months.
Yeah, about 6 months ago, they grounded me. Until then, I was going out doing this solo.
That's dangerous, Tex.
I would go out and spend, overnight and a couple of nights and stuff like that out there by myself. And I've had a lot of encounters. I got a lot of evidence that is unexplainable, you know, especially what we're finding out now. It's insane. It really is. I mean,
a lot of paranormal stuff going out there, and it's not just Bigfoot, especially, you know, my teams, we go out and we have several areas that we research that are areas of just extreme high strangeness, which rivals that of Skinwalker Ranch in a lot of ways. Okay. And, you know, that sounds like Brown Springs to me. And, you know, I can't say there's been brutal murders or anything like that in the places that we go, but there are clusters of missing people.
right.
And, you know, and of course my team has documented what we consider a portal. And so that's kind of scary on its own right there, you know, considering all those missing people that go missing out of all the forest every year. But yeah, let's talk about this remote viewing target that I did, because when I came on the show next,
pins and needles waiting to do.
We've got about 10 minutes left, a little under 10 minutes. So I figure we touch on this before we go tonight. And,
now, y'all got to remember real quick, this is in Oklahoma, just across the Red River from Texas. So here we go.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about an alleged Bigfoot attack that people, the locals, have just kind of assumed that it was a Bigfoot, right? That it attacked a couple. Can you tell us a little bit about it before I go into my target?
Sure. There was a couple that they had went parking, and they were out there doing their thing. And this is a wildlife refuge area down there. So, you know, it's public land. So they were out there and they were smooching or whatever. Well, they didn't come back. So people started looking for them and they found them. And according to the reports, now we've tried to look into this, and we've been told it's an open and ongoing investigation, and we can't get no details on it. So, but allegedly, they found the old boy thrown over in the brush. Some reports you hear he was bent and double in half. Some report his head would turn around backwards. But the woman was spread eagle on the car. She'd been brutalized, and she was ripped stem to stern. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, it sounds like, you know, we hear stories of the Genesqua and these Bigfoots that are super alpha crazy, twisting people's heads off and stuff like that. And that was kind of where it sounded like it was going with this report. And considering you had mentioned that there had been large footprints found in the area, you know, it did sound like a Bigfoot attack, a possible Bigfoot attack or a Dogman attack, right? But then we got to think, there's also not too many reports, you know, that we've had encounters with Dogman. You've had an encounter with Dogman, Bigfoot, and we're rarely attacked, you know. So I did not take any of that into consideration when I did this target, though. I decided to do this target for you, Tex. I was going to surprise you with it today.
Man, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because, you know,
he's been waiting.
For everybody, if you guys aren't familiar, anyone who's watching, I do remote viewing, and my team is all trained in remote viewing. And so we're able to look at certain things that a lot of people aren't able to see. You know, we examine areas before we go into research. I help find missing people sometimes, you know, to help do cold cases and things like that to try to find out where missing people are. Okay. So I don't normally do a lot of remote viewing targets on request, but for Tex and Rob, I made you know, I made an exception because you guys are awesome. Okay. And I was really I wanted to look into this too. You know, I was really interested in this. Now my data came back, and let me preface this by saying I have to, you know, we have a lot of respect for the family of this couple that was murdered. Okay. So not to get into too many details, my data came back that it was not a Bigfoot. Okay. So it did come back that there was possibly some sort of ritual or gang activity. Okay. And it had something to do with occult practices. Okay. And perhaps there was some sort of initiation or satanic activity. Okay. That's what my data came back, just to give you a little bit of an overview, you know, without getting into detail. But it was more like a gang of humans. Okay.
And that doesn't
just
surprise me a bit.
Yeah. So what is that? How does that make you feel? Like, is this something that you were expecting to hear, or how do you feel, Tex?
It was, I don't know if I was hoping that it was a Bigfoot or a Dogman or whatever. It's just, I'm glad that we found out. Honestly, I'm glad we found out that it wasn't, because these critters get a bad enough rap.
They do. They
But
do.
it doesn't. You finding out the occult is involved doesn't surprise me a bit. We got surrounded by 5 cop cars out there one night, and they were hunting a coven of witches that were sacrificing chickens. So
okay, well, let me tell you, that's part of my data. Actually, came back sacrifice. Okay, so it could have been something to do with that,
right?
Because it was definitely part of my data. Okay, so and if that couple was not a sacrifice, let's say, there's that goes on that property, because it did come up in my data. Okay. And I do coordinate remote viewing. So it was, I actually made a target out of this, and just I got about 4 or 5 pages of data, and then I kind of shut it down because it was very dark. And this area is very dark, you guys,
Yes,
in case you didn't already know. I would, not that I would be hesitant to go there and research, but I would never go there by myself, Tex. So, I wouldn't go. And it's not even because of the paranormal stuff. I would be scared of the people out there.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, real briefly too, I mean, I'm glad that this came back, as I'm not glad that people died. Okay. I will just qualify that. And, you have so many people out there that are going to try and say the 411 Bigfoot Dogman. Well, in my opinion, we can do another show on this show, or our show, me and Tex, because Bigfoot and Dogman aren't doing all these things. This just shows you 411 is humans, could be Dogman, Bigfoot, portals, right?
Yeah.
Anything.
It could be anything.
It could be anything. And I'm glad that you did what you did. And I appreciate that, as Tex does, Jessica. Thank you ever so much, because now moving forward, when you go to Brown Springs, you don't need a weapon for the entities, but perhaps it's for the human element.
I mean, that's how I roll. I mean, seriously, I feel like I have to protect myself and the guys on my team, everybody. It's not the paranormal stuff we're worried about so much as a serial killer hiding out in the woods, So it's something that we all have to think about. And, sometimes the biggest dangers are just other humans. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about tonight? We've got about 2 minutes left.
Real quick,
2 minutes. Come on,
2 minutes, guys.
Real quick, I want to let everybody know that Jason, Rob, and myself will be at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference in June, 10th and 11th, I believe it is. Jason and myself will be speakers there, and there's the web out right there.
Standing around looking pretty, I guess.
Well, we have to have our eye candy, and you're it.
Oh man, I'm so coming to that. I'm going to see you guys there. And,
I can't wait to meet you.
Yeah, it's not too far from my house. I've got some of my teammates. Bob Grumpy Wilson will be there. My friend Kristen, who's on my team, and Trey Hudson, one of my teammates. He's going to be speaking there with you guys. Yep. So it's going to be a good time. Yeah, I can't wait to hang out with you guys.
We got Ken Gerhardt's going to be speaking. Cliff Brackman's going to be speaking.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a good time. And Anita Collier's putting this thing together, and she has just done a fantastic job.
Wonderful.
And what's really cool is, now I guess this is still on point. Last I heard, the proceeds are going to go towards giving 2 scholarships to the forensic program to a college.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so
great.
If you believe in Bigfoot or not, come on out and support that, for goodness sake.
Yes.
Absolutely. Hey, and come out and see
your bus nuts talk.
See your local Bigfoot researchers out there. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait to meet you guys. Thank y'all so much for coming on my show tonight. We've got so much more to talk about, of course, but the 53, 54 minutes goes by real quick. So I'm going to bring you guys back on. The next time you guys are available, we'll schedule you in again. Okay. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you for
Likewise.
having us.
Thank
Y'all
you.
are my favorite Bigfoot podcasting duo.
Well,
Okay.
thank
Right.
you. That means a lot. And thank you so much for remote viewing that. I know it wasn't easy.
Absolutely. No, it was, I've learned to protect myself. It was wonderful. I appreciated doing that. Okay. Well, you guys, please join me next week. I'm going to have Jason Kinsey on. He is a wildlife photographer and a filmmaker who has just done a 5-part series called Searching for Sasquatch. And it is amazing. He's won some international film awards for it. And you guys are going to love it. And I'm going to love it. And I can't wait. So Tex, Rob, thank you guys again for coming into the portal with me tonight. And I will see y'all next week.
Thank you, Jessica.